So first and foremost, I apologize for the Birks and socks. I know it can be triggering, but it's called fashion. Just kidding. But I'll show you some footage of me doing a few reps, and then we'll talk about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So we're gonna go through two different setups. The first setup is gonna be you at your seated cable row station like I have set up here with kind of foot pads here. And the second one's gonna involve you pulling a bench over and kind of setting up with the chest support. I love both of these variations, but I do think that if I had all the ability to do whatever I wanted, like I have in my own space here, I would pull the bench over and I would do the second variation, but I'll be honest with you, they both work great. So first, why is it called a pull around? Why isn't it just a row? And in order to answer that, we have to back up a little bit and talk a little bit about the importance of training muscles at longer lengths. For best hypertrophy, we want to be challenging muscles in a more stretched position. And so we're trying to train the lats here. When we talk about stretching the lats, we want to do two things. We want to let our arm go out in front of us like this or above us, depending on which division of the lats, whatever. We want to let our arm go away from us, but in order to fully lengthen the lats, we actually want to bring the arm across the body. You can actually see as I do that, you can start to see the outline of my lats on the shirt here, and that's my lats actually wrapping around the rib cage. And so that's why this is a pull around, because we're actually trying to pull from across the body. And so both of these options will involve setting up in a position where our arm is across our body instead of being squared up like we normally would with two arms on a row like this. Now, when it comes to setting up in your seated cable row station, a lot of the actual execution of the lift will be the same for both setups, but I'll go through them both as we do it. And so I'm gonna start by demoing my right arm, right? And so this is how you would normally set up with two arms. You'd be squared up against the machine. What we wanna do is we wanna set up so that that arm is over here, so that our arm is actually across our body. And as I'm facing the machine, I can't move the cable over to my left here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna rotate my hips and my shoulders towards the working side. And that really accomplishes the same thing. If I'm like this, and then I rotate like this, guess what? My arm is now across my chest. It's across my body, and we're getting that kind of lats wrapping around the rib cage effect. So that's what we're gonna do. You're gonna grab with your right arm. As far as putting your feet up, I like having your opposite foot on the same side. What that means is I'm doing my right arm, and I have my left foot up, but I have it on the right side. And that really lets me open up my hips and shoulders so that I'm facing diagonally to the right. And I can already feel my lats being pulled across my body right now. Now that I'm set up nice and tall, right? We're not leaning forward for these, we're not leaning back. I want you tall like this. I'm going to think about driving my elbow down and back until, I'm gonna do this without all the weight, until my elbow is roughly in line with my torso. Now, if your elbow is going a little bit behind your torso, that's not the end of the world, it's totally fine. What I don't want, ironically, is where the name can be a little bit tricky, is I don't want you to pull around your back, right? And so the biggest mistake I see is this urge to twist and pull your elbow around your back, and I'll show you what that looks like. It looks like this. So reminder, this is what I don't want. See how I'm rotating as I pull, and I'm pulling my elbow around the back? That's not what I want. What I want you to do is set up in position, in the correct position, lock in, and just pull with your arm, not twisting the torso. So here's what it should look like. And so a quick recap on the setup. You're gonna grab with one hand, you're gonna put the opposite side foot up on the same side of the foot plate, and you're going to rotate your hips and torso towards the working arm, lock in, pull till the arm is in line with the torso, roughly. I don't want you pulling and twisting. Don't pull and twist. Lock the torso in place and pull. most of us subconsciously want to kind of finish that motion by rotating. I don't want you to do that. I want you to lock in place, get the torso on a good angle, and then pull until the arm is roughly in line with the torso. If the elbow goes back a little bit, it's not the end of the world. Of course, I'll take a peek in the form videos. And so we'll take a look at what that looks like in full speed, and then we'll move to the next setup. And so for this second setup, you'll pull over a bench and you'll set it up at either 90 degrees, totally upright, or one click down. It's totally fine. You're not actually resting your chest against the bench. You're just using it as support. And so in our last setup, what we did is we grabbed with one arm and we twisted our hips and torso towards the working arm. Now we're gonna do that here, but it's gonna be a little bit easier because we don't actually have to do any of that ourselves. It kind of just happens naturally. And so I'm gonna be working my right arm again, and what I'm gonna do is, instead of straddling the bench like I normally would for a chest support, I'm gonna be sitting like this. And so my feet are already off to one side, my hips are already facing that right side, my shoulders are already facing this right side, and I'm using my elbow to press against the head of the bench for a nice, stable position here. And I'm already done. My setup is done. My arm is across my body, my elbow is pressed here for stability, my hips and shoulders are facing the working arm, and from here, I can just kind of grip it and rip it. And I can already tell when I'm set up like this, I'm expending less energy to maintain this body posture. When I was in the other position, I really had to focus a little bit more on it. Here, I can kind of just sit into my elbow presses into the pad, my feet are resting like this, and it's just a little bit easier to maintain this position here. Now remember, what I don't want is I don't want you to twist as you pull, right? I don't want you to twist the torso as you pull. I want you to get locked into position here and then just pull on the weight. Get locked into position and then pull on the weight. Now, if you're wondering about cable height, at the end of the day, I want it to be a roughly horizontal pull. And what that means is when I'm set up here, I want my arm roughly perpendicular to the torso. I don't want my arm up here. I don't want it down there. I want it roughly perpendicular to the torso. And so just give that an eyeball and say, okay, if my arm's like this and I extend through the arm, where would the cable be? And I'm happy to kind of, as always, tell you, hey, cable up one click or down one click or bench up one click, down one click. And so we'll get it right. There's no perfect, hey, set it up at knee height, because it all depends on your height and the bench height and all of that stuff. And so when you are set up here, you want it to be roughly perpendicular to the torso, and you can kind of shoot an arm or shoot the cable through that and use that as a starting point. So quick recap, what we're doing is a pull around, and we're pulling with our arm across the body with either setup. And what that's doing is actually letting our lat pull across the rib cage and expose the muscle to a little longer length, which is a good thing for hypertrophy. The biggest mistakes that I see are pulling and twisting. And for the nerds out there, what we're doing is we are trading away the fully short position in exchange for the fully lengthened position. What that means is this might be the fully short position for your lat, or a much shorter position, right? But we're giving up this position in exchange for this position, right? And if you wanted to get both positions, you would do this, right? So we're getting the fully lengthened, we're getting the fully shortened, but we're giving up that lengthened or that shortened position in exchange for the lengthened position here. And so you're just pulling here, not rotating the torso as you pull. And so I want you to set up, arm across the chest, lock the torso in place, pull the elbow down and back until it's in line with the torso. That's the pull around. And when it comes to switching sides with this setup, as long as the bench is lined up directly with the middle of the cable, you can just flip to the other side and it'll work incredibly well. And so we'll finish with some full speed reps with this setup, and then I'll let you guys go. Ugh.